You wake up at 5 in the morning, concrete walls, a steel bunk, a body that feels heavier than it did the day before you walked in. There is no gym here, no machines, no barbells, no mirrors lining a wall so you can check your form. Just a 6x9 cell, a narrow strip of floor, and hours you cannot escape. And yet, somehow, the man in the cell next to you looks like he trains for a living. Veins running down his forearms, shoulders that fill out his uniform, a chest that looks carved rather than grown. You start to wonder how that's possible in a place with nothing. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how it happens, and why prison, of all places, has quietly produced some of the most effective bodyweight training systems in the world. The first thing you learn inside is that time behaves differently here. On the outside, an hour is something you spend. In here, it's something you survive. And the men who adapt fastest are the ones who find a way to turn that time into a tool. Muscle is one of the few things a man can build in a place designed to take everything else away. You can't control your release date. You can't control the guards, the food, the noise, the waiting. But you can control push-ups. You can control dips. You can control how many times you make your own body move against itself. That single realization is where every prison workout begins. The first exercises you'll see are the obvious ones. Push-ups, sit-ups, squats, nothing exotic. But watch closely, and you'll notice something strange. The way these men do push-ups is not the way you learned in gym class. Feet elevated on a bunk, hands close together to target the triceps. Fingers spread wide to load the chest. Some men do them explosively, driving off the ground with enough force to clap their hands together mid-air before catching themselves on the way down. This isn't performance, it's necessity. Without added weight, the only way to keep building strength is to make the exercise harder in other ways, steeper angles, slower tempo, longer time under tension. That principle has a name outside these walls. Trainers call it progressive overload. Inside, nobody uses that term. They just call it getting creative. And creativity, in a place with almost nothing, becomes the entire system. Take the dip. On the outside, you'd use parallel bars or a dip station. In here, men use the edge of a steel bunk, 2 footlockers pushed together, even the edge of a sink bolted to the wall. They lower their body between 2 fixed points and push back up, shoulders burning, until the muscle simply refuses to fire anymore. Some facilities have a set of steel bars mounted outside for pull-ups. When they do, those bars are treated like gold. Men line up for them the way people line up for a machine at a crowded commercial gym, except here, missing your turn might mean waiting an entire day for the next yard period. But most cells don't have bars at all, so the men without access invent something else. A twisted bedsheet looped through the frame of a top bunk becomes a resistance band. A laundry bag filled with books becomes a weight to press overhead. Water bottles, tied together with shoelaces, become dumbbells. None of it looks like equipment. All of it works like equipment. This is where the psychology becomes just as important as the physiology. Prison strips a man of almost every choice he used to take for granted: what to eat, when to sleep, who to talk to, where to go. Training becomes one of the last places where a decision is entirely his. Nobody assigns the workout. Nobody forces the reps. And that ownership matters more than most people on the outside would guess. Psychologists who study incarceration have long noted that a sense of control, even over something as small as a set of push-ups, can be the difference between a man who deteriorates mentally and one who holds himself together. The body becomes the one variable a person can still master when everything else has been taken from him. That's not motivation, that's survival. And once you understand that, the sheer intensity of prison training starts to make sense. You'll hear about workouts that sound almost impossible. 500 push-ups broken into sets throughout the day. 1,000 squats spread across a single afternoon. Hours spent doing nothing but bodyweight circuits, because there is, quite literally, nothing else to do. Some of it is exaggeration, the kind of story that grows every time it's retold on a cell block. But strip away the myth, and the core of it holds up. When a man has 10, 12, sometimes 16 hours of unstructured time a day, and training is one of the only outlets available to him, volume becomes his substitute for equipment. He can't add 40 pounds to the bar. So instead, he adds 400 more reps. It's brutal. It's also, according to exercise scientists, remarkably effective, at least for building a certain kind of physique. High-rep bodyweight training builds muscular endurance and a dense, functional strength that doesn't always show up on a scale but shows up unmistakably in appearance. That's why the stereotype exists for a reason. The wide back, the thick chest, the forearms that look like they belong to men twice their age. It isn't myth, it's math. Thousands of repetitions, compounding week after week, year after year, with nothing to interrupt the pattern. But there's something else happening here that has nothing to do with sets and reps. Inside, a strong body isn't just about health. It's about currency. In an environment where violence is always a possibility, physical presence becomes a form of protection. Men who look capable of defending themselves are, statistically and anecdotally, less likely to be tested by others looking for an easy target. Strength becomes a kind of unspoken agreement, a signal that says, "Don't try this with me." That's why training in prison is rarely casual. It isn't done for aesthetics, and it isn't done for a summer body. It's done because in a place where your safety can depend on how you're perceived, your body is one of the only messages you get to send before anyone speaks a word to you. This is also why training often becomes communal. Groups form around workout routines the same way they form around anything else inside: shared identity, shared discipline, shared protection. A man training alone in the yard is vulnerable. A man training with 3 others who spot each other, push each other, and watch each other's backs is not just building muscle. He is building an alliance. Some of these informal systems have become so refined they've developed their own vocabulary, passed down from one generation of inmates to the next. Certain push-up variations, certain rep schemes tied to specific muscle groups, certain rest periods dictated by the schedule of the facility itself. Because in prison, you don't train around your life. You train around the count, the meals, the lockdowns, and the narrow windows of time when movement is even allowed. And that brings us to one of the strangest parts of this entire system, the fact that some of the most disciplined training regimens in the country exist in places specifically designed to break a person down. Outside researchers who've studied incarcerated populations have noted a pattern. Men who commit to structured physical training inside tend to show measurably better outcomes, lower reported anxiety, more stable sleep, fewer disciplinary incidents. It isn't a cure for the psychological toll of incarceration. Nothing is. But it's one of the few tools inmates have found, almost independently, across facilities that have never coordinated with each other, all converging on the same basic idea. Movement is medicine, even when the 4 walls around you never change. There are limits, of course. Nutrition inside is rarely built for muscle growth. Meals are calculated for cost and calorie minimums, not for protein targets or recovery. Which is why the commissary, the small prison store where inmates can buy limited food items with money sent from outside, becomes almost as important as the workout itself. Tuna packets, peanut butter, protein-heavy snacks, when available, get treated like currency of their own. Men trade for them, save for them, plan entire weeks around getting enough to support the training they've already committed to. It's an entire underground economy, built quietly around the goal of getting stronger in a place that was never designed to help anyone do that. And still, they find a way. Maybe that's the real story here, not the push-ups, not the makeshift equipment, not even the muscle itself. It's the fact that human beings, placed into one of the most restrictive environments imaginable, will still find a way to build something out of nothing. Strip away the gym, the equipment, the freedom, and what's left is just a body, a floor, and the will to keep going. That's not a workout program. That's a mindset. And it's one that most people outside these walls, with every convenience available to them, still struggle to find. So here's the question worth sitting with. If you had nothing but a floor and your own body weight, no gym, no equipment, no excuses left to hide behind, how strong could you actually become? If you found this look inside prison training as fascinating as we did, hit like, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more documentaries pulling back the curtain on the hidden world behind the walls.